Hey guys, this week we're looking at the life and work of Caravaggio. Now his full name was Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. He was born in Milano on September 29, 1571, to Fermo Merisi and Lucia Rettori. Unfortunately, both of his parents died before he turned 14 due to the plague, and after their deaths, he entered into the apprenticeship of Lombard painter Simone Peterzano. And as you'll see, Caravaggio excelled at getting into trouble, and when he was 21, he fled to Rome after certain quarrels and wounding a police officer. When he arrived, he was completely broke, and he entered work in the workshop of Giuseppe Cesari, who happened to be the Pope's favorite artist. And during his time with Giuseppe, he worked on mostly flowers and fruit. Now Caravaggio really rose to notoriety when he was commissioned by Cardinal Francesco del Monte to paint the Contarelli Chapel in the San Luigi dei Francesi. And his two works in the chapel were the Martyrdom of St. Matthew and the Calling of St. Matthew. And after this point, Caravaggio's career really took off. And unfortunately, it took a downturn when he got into an argument with a young man in Rome and ended up stabbing and killing him. After this, he fled to Naples, where again he rose to great notoriety. After some time, he decided to move to Malta, where he was accepted into the order the Knights of Malta. Now it's speculated that the reason he did this was that he could receive a pardon for his previous murder and return to Rome. But after some time, Caravaggio was expelled from the order for brawling with another knight, and he was imprisoned. He ended up escaping to Sicily, where once again he got into another brawl, and this one left him badly disfigured, and he returned to Naples. Toward the end of Caravaggio's life, he decided he was allowed to return to Rome, but unfortunately for him he never made it, and he died of a fever in Porto Ercole on July 8, 1610, at only 38 years old. Now let's look a little bit more closely at some of the characteristics of Caravaggio.
Caravaggio could easily be considered one of the most impactful rebels in all of art history. Caravaggio was actually the first artist on record who intentionally went out of his way to shock conventional people. But unlike the postmodern artists of today, who secure urinals to walls and call them art exhibits, Caravaggio chose to shock people by painting religious scenes in the context of daily life. If you look to the right of your screen, you'll see Caravaggio's painting, The Beheading of John the Baptist. As you can see, the woman who is cutting off John the Baptist's head is dressed in traditional 18th century garb. She's not dressed like a woman who was in 30 BC or 50 BC. She's dressed as a modern day woman from Caravaggio's perspective. Though Caravaggio was quite unruly, he was also a genius. He was actually a monumental part of the transition from Mannerism to Baroque, which classified European art and architecture from the 17th to the 18th century. It was heavily characterized by ornate details. He was also one of the founders of psychological realism, which conveys the depth of human feeling while also capturing an extraordinary sense of solid reality. He's often compared to William Shakespeare, but with a brush rather than a pen, because he solicited direct emotional involvement from his audience.
And now we have the Calling of St. Matthew. This is located in the Contarelli Chapel in San Luigi dei Francesi in Rome. This is an oil painting. So first we'll start with the windows, and the windows have been a symbol of revelation, and the panes on the windows are oiled paper, which is customary before the universal use of glass. The Calling of St. Matthew can also be divided into two parts. The figures on the right form a vertical rectangle, while those on the left create a horizontal block. The two sides are further distinguished by their clothing and symbolically by Christ's hand. Caravaggio uses light and shadow greatly to his advantage. The figures are kind of engulfed by the shadow, and it's only the beaming light that shines across the wall and highlights the fact of St. Matthew and the seated group that brightens the canvas up. And this light is kind of coming out of nowhere, and because it doesn't cast any shadows on the characters on the left, it makes it seem as though this is truly a heavenly and godly like light beaming through. So what's most unique about this piece is Caravaggio's use of light and shadow to add drama to the image, and as well as the giving the features a quality of immediacy. Many other artists later followed Caravaggio's example and copied this technique. Next is the conversion of St. Paul, and this is in the Sorossi Chapel in Santa Maria del Popolo in Rome. And this is an oil painting. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the analysis of it. So it is against a background and making it seem a dark background, making it seem like it's coming out of nowhere. And this makes it so that there aren't any distractions and the viewer is really focusing in on Paul. So Paul is falling towards us and he's kind of entering into our own space. And his arms are outstretched in a kind of catatonic trance and making him seem as though he's shocked as to what is happening. Paul has just seen a vision of Christ and has been blinded by celestial light, and we can see this depicted in the art by Paul's eyes being closed. And in the painting, we can also see this kind of continued illumination from heaven with the bright light on Paul. And then if we look more towards Paul, we see that there's a sword and a cloak. And these are reminders of Paul's former identity as Saul the persecutor. And the cloak that's kind of surrounding him can be compared to the swaddling cloths of baby Jesus, making it as though we are witnessing a spiritual rebirth. In the painting, there are also two other main characters, and one is the horse who has its hoof upturned, and it looks like he's about to strike Paul. And this gives a sense of tension to the art. Another main character is the groom who is behind the horse, and he mainly concentrates on holding the reins to prevent the horse from trampling Paul. So the unique part of the conversion of St. Paul is the background. Like I said before, it makes it so that there aren't any distractions. It makes it appear as if it's coming out of nowhere. It's just right in front of us and happening in that moment.